Hello and welcome back to Momentous Struggle, a Shatterpoint podcast. You may notice this is not Todd. This is Aubrey. Someone has let the pigeon drive the bus again. So instead of listening to me and Todd talk about goofiness, instead it's going to be Aubrey talking to Sarah Cruel and the purest of Christophers. Welcome, guys. How we doing?
Doing well. Happy to be here. Happy to do something Shatterpoint related because life's crazy.
Yes. How are you doing, Chris?
Mm. It's not super early in the morning, but I still just from the week that we've had. Ask me in an hour.
That is absolutely fair because so I know a lot of people got to attend a bunch of fun Shatterpoint events all over yesterday, and I know there's more going on today because we are recording on May the 4th. So even though you're going to be hearing this in the future, May the 4th be with you to all who are celebrating or have or will have already celebrated because that will be in the past by the time you hear this. Yay.
We wish you
So,
future celebrations on today, so therefore the past. It's like Japan. Today is yesterday for for them, and it's very confusing time zones.
this is like how when I've because of talking to the Red Mando so much, I've Googled what time is it in Australia way too often, and now I've learned they're 6 hours behind us in Arizona, but in the future, so they're behind us, but not behind us.
The day changed, but the time is in the past. And then it's only half the year for you because the answer Arizona doesn't do like daily savings time, so that varies. Does that mean that they're
Mm.
7 hours behind the rest of the time?
Oh yeah, or well no, they they don't. Australia doesn't do daylight savings, right?
Actually, I don't know.
That's just that's
Is that
just
an American
us,
thing?
right? I'm pretty sure that's just us.
Oh,
We're
then if
the
so,
crazy
then you know
ones.
you're fine. You're fine. I change time with them all the time.
Yes.
I ceased to because daylight savings time is the dumbest thing in the world. But that's not what this
Yeah.
topic's about. Why are we? We don't need to go there.
Uh, the Momentous Struggle, a daylight savings podcast.
You
Yes.
heard it here first.
Oh man. So no, it is interesting. I will add one more detail though, because Sarah Cruel, what's funny is because you live in Nevada, you're on the same time zone as my parents. I spend all of the time telling every year I have to explain to my parents, half the year we're on the same time. Half the year we're not on the same time. I'm always on the same time. You're the one who changes.
All right, so I did a quick Google search. It's not just U.S. It is in Canada and in Australia, so they actually might change depending on. So now you'll have to look more details on this. I'm not going to do that right now, but yes, apparently Australia does have daylight savings time.
Huh.
So they may change, but it's you still stay
Yeah.
still. You're still the positive standard. Aubrey holds the time continuum together. We've learned this today.
I tell
Oh.
everybody that Arizona is the one true time zone because everyone changes around
Mm,
us, and I'm just like, so actually that contributed a lot to me having a hard time with time zones because everything was always changing in comparison to me. I'm like, I don't know until I worked with REI where their headquarters is Washington. So then I just said, okay, I'm Washington now, even though I'm in Arizona, right? Because so
yeah, I've covered three time zones at a previous job, and I will tell you, Arizona basically made it four
yeah,
half the
yeah,
year. So
yeah.
yeah, I get it. I get it.
Yes. But okay, all right. I kept us derailed because Todd's not here to stop me. Uh, how have your games of Shatterpoint been recently? Sarah Kroll, would you like to go first and get it out of the way?
So yeah, my shatter point's been fairly limited, unfortunately. It is something I'm working to change, but with having twins and my job still fairly new. I mean, I started in December. I'm I'm and I didn't take over my role officially till February. So I've only really been in my full role 90 days. I'm a district manager for a storage company, so a lot to learn there, and it's getting better and better. But I come home and then my wife's home, and I want to take load off her shoulders. So we've been watching lots of shows. I've gotten in one game since Adepticon. Uh, was a very interesting game. I got a chance to play Krennic, and I was playing that with Iden. Um, but I wasn't taking Iden box. Iden was only part of her box, and uh, obviously we haven't seen any announcement today on May the 4th, but hopefully we will soon of the updates. But I will. I think what's going to be very interesting is we're going to see a lot more Iden outside of her shell or with a minor part of her shell. I think it went very well. I think the only thing I missed is I had Haas still in there. He was the only part that I had. I didn't have ISF. I had the Shores and Death Troopers. I think if I'd had the Dark Death Trooper escort in there, I actually think that list would have done really well. I mean, Iden's great by herself, and I think people will learn that she's good. That I think we'll see things like Iden with just ISF. Um, but the game was very fun. It was very close. My opponent was pretty good. He went and he actually just played in the recent um, tournament up there and with Duncan and there was Evil. What is his name? Why can't I think of his name? Evil.
Houdini.
No, 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 no.
Oh,
Evil.
different evil.
Grand
Different
Moff
evil.
Eric. Sorry, Grand Moff Eric. There we go. Mixed my people up, and he got third, and he did very well. But one of the things we talked about in his game, and I think that's something that's very interesting, is there were definitely points in his game where he took very high risk factors. And one of the things that we talked about, and I hope it helped him for his GT, is hey, you can take these plays, and sometimes they'll look really good because then you go and win. But the answer is if that's a 1 in 5 play, that means there's 4 times you potentially lose. And so it's one of those things where it was a good discussion of saying, hey, sometimes you need to rein back and look at those things and say, I can't go off of the survivor biased. Are you guys familiar with what that is? If not, I can explain it. So in World War II, there was a thing called survivor's bias. So when planes came back, they were looking at all the bullet holes of all the planes that survived, and what they had to realize is they need to look where the bullet holes weren't because that's the people that didn't make it back. It's not where the bullet holes are. So in this case, hey, it's limited assist. If you're playing a game and you see something that works all the time, make sure it's working. You make a risky play. Make sure you also take into consideration that may or may not be a true answer to your solution unless it works more often than not. So but it was super fun. Hoping to get some games. I now have gotten with the wife. We're going to dedicate Wednesdays, so I'm going to get some TTS games in soon to do some stuff, and hopefully build some minis soon. I've half assembled Vader 3, and that's all the hobbing I've done. So which I'm pretty sure I did that the day after Depticon. So that's it. That's my life. Kids are doing great though, and I'm happy to be here. And life, I've been told, will calm down a little bit, or at least normal size, pretty soon. So to the point where at least I can get a little time to do fun stuff.
Hey, I feel you with the starting a new job at the same time as a bunch of other life changes because uh I started a new job and mine is really just I went from being a supervisor to an assistant branch manager in a library and I was like, "Oh, I mean, this is pretty much the same job. It'll be fine." But I also changed buildings, new team, and so I'm having to learn that the way they all work together and it turned out, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good now, but it's been like that change was in December, and I have to say the first 3 months, I was like, oh, this is this is harder than I expected. I was kind of just expected to hit the ground running, and no, I still had to learn and move into the position and figure everything out. So yeah,
Life.
and kids, you get into the routine. Some months it's gonna feel like everything's on fire, and some months not, and it'll be good again.
Yeah, the biggest challenge for me, and this is the thing, is raising kids in general is hard, but when you have twins, unless you can get them to snap at the same time, what happens is you never get that moment where you're putting someone down. So that 30 minutes, that 15 minutes you earn doesn't exist. And therefore, if my wife's home 12 hours doing that, I feel like I have to come home and relieve that for her. Even though I'm working, it's a different kind of work. Um, so, a lot of times I do that. So that's why we've made it a deal on Wednesday nights. I'll be able to do some stuff. So look to all those people who've been. I've had a lot of people ask me for games. They're coming. Make your Wednesdays free. I promise.
Oh boy, oh boy. All right. Oh, okay, Chris. Do you have any twins or new jobs or in my case, I had a plumber, an HVAC guy, and an AC guy in my house all on the same day, and well, just say a prayer for my wallet. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. It won't be fine. How are you doing?
Oh, my life has been stable. I would say it's not exciting. It just normal stuff, and for that we have our normal stuff can be small blessings. So yeah, I mean, aside from like I don't know, it's just been a whirlwind. I've just been underwater in this hobby, which is a good problems to have, right? Just in terms of um, oh my goodness, I'm so exhausted. Yeah. So, I mean, like this week, just preparing for the May 4th or May 3rd, May 4th tournament. And we've also had several other tournaments in the last 20 days that I've participated in. Arizona just it goes hard in terms of what's going on. Like, well, we have like what is it, Aubrey? 34 people between for an Arizona league. Is that right?
I think that's the right number. I can't. You keep talking. I can look it up,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's something
I
like
think
that.
it's 34 people are signed
So
up for a league
jealous.
in Arizona. And yesterday, a guy from Tucson was talking with Todd and saying, "Hey, well, why don't we also start like and join in with the league next time and we'll do a Tucson division." So it's gonna grow. 34 is not where it stops. So we basically have more than a grand tournament just in people playing league games in Arizona, and so you can imagine, right? Just because of how many stores there are, there's also tournaments happening nonstop, which is what I think makes the weekly play isn't as heavily attended, and that's probably because you can get a tournament like every weekend somewhere, and so you know. But yeah, no, this last week I played. I went down and played Matt Booker on Tuesday. Then I went to a local store really close to me for a weekly meetup on Wednesday. And then on Thursday, I went down to another store and played a league game on their weekly night. On Friday, Matt Booker was saying, "Hey, is anyone coming out to the weekly play over at this store?" And I said, "I just am burned out. I need to stay at home and not talk to humans." Because I just don't want to drive again. And I felt bad that I wasn't gonna go out and play, but like, oh my goodness, I just needed some time to when have you ever done that thing where you just have like five Snickers or like a bag of Snickers and it's the challenge where you have to eat as many Snickers as you can? Now Snickers are great. They're fantastic. But by the time you're on your sixth Snicker, you're like, I can't I don't really want this right now, and that's kind of what you can do. You can certainly do that with Shatterpoint games where you get to the point in the week where you're like, I I'm good. So then Saturday, which was yesterday, our May 3rd event, 19 players. We were capped at 16 for the previous tournament, and we got the store to give us 4 extra slots, so we went up to 20. Um, and so that held true for this event. We had 20 players at a local tournament, and we ended up at 19 because like there's just gonna be people that don't get to make it out when it comes to the actual event. That's expected. I saw Todd yesterday. He got to come out
Yay!
and play some games. I felt really bad because he got a bye on round one, and I was like, dude,
Oh,
you yeah. I mean, he made the best of his time, but even so, it's I'm like, you haven't gotten to play, and then you finally get some time to play, and you get a bye. That's a bummer. So sorry to ramble on
yeah.
about that for a while, but
I do want to sit there and say I've never been in that Snickers scenario, so I'm not sure if I can relate.
when you
Uh,
say you've never been in the Snickers scenario, do you mean you've never gotten tired by the six Snickers, or you've never put down a bag of Snickers and just seen how many you can go through?
Probably both. Just to let you know, I'm sitting there like, I think I need a better analogy. Like, is this something where like you're trying to eat an extra slice of pizza or something? Because I've tried to do that before, but I've never been like, let me just take a bag of Snickers. Usually it's like, hey, you're hungry. You're not yourself when you're hungry. Have a Snickers, not have a bag of Snickers and almost kill yourself with
What about
diabetes.
like marshmallows? Have you ever done it
No,
with
I'm
like
not playing Chubby
no?
Bunny. Nope, this isn't happening. So I'm just letting you know. I was like, all right, Chris, I might need to have. I'm not sure if I want to try and understand this analogy. That's all I'm saying is I don't know if I need to be in a place where I'm just shoving Snickers in my mouth. So I appreciate you sharing that, but this might be a you only thing. I guess we'll
Oh,
find out from the group if they had anyone who understood this.
Aubrey, are you with the
No,
no?
I'm sorry. I don't. I've never done that. I mean, okay, don't get me wrong. Like, yes, I've polished off like an entire pizza as a teenager, and so my growing up, I had one really close friend. I would go and hang out at his house for like a whole weekend. We'd play games nonstop because he lived in the next town over. So it was like I would only really see him like once a week when we would hang out, and so like we would buy those family sized packages of Oreos, like one each, and demolished with those things like in like one sitting, sure. Like, and then, but I mean, I was a teenager, so my metabolism just went. Da 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 da. Got this. So I have never. But those are Oreos. Like they're individually small. A Snickers bar. How many did you
No,
eat?
like the tiny ones, like the bag is small. They're like this big. They're,
Oh, I
I'm
still
not
can't
saying
relate then
I'm not
because I've had
eating
five of
six
those
whole
without
Snickers.
problem. Uh,
Imagine having
Oh,
six
the
whole
little.
Snickers. Everyone outside of the States right now is like Americans. Yeah, no, so like that story comes from like a church setting where they're like too much of a good thing can be not a good thing, right? And so like they would just have you sit down and like try as a kid to like give a challenge to kids. I'm thinking like back in like junior high where they're like try and how many can you eat, and you get to like six and you're like I'm done.
Oh,
Church was interesting.
oh.
I think we might.
Did we lose? Did we
Well,
lose? Okay, we might we
to
might
pull
have
this
lost.
in, to say that
Might-
too much of a good thing is awesome. Now, I don't come from the Arizona market, so for me, it's definitely a little bit of a challenge in the sense that obviously I wish I could definitely get more games. And we have one group that plays on Thursday nights. My wife works Thursday nights. I literally can't go, so um, I definitely think that's a that seems like a first world Shatterpoint problem. I think everyone would love to have communities where they could just have the options to be able to go and play events and be able to meet up with people. So, I mean, we still need to work on growing the game. Hopefully, that Arizona love can be passed along to some of these other Western states because it definitely seems like there's a lot of stuff going on in the East, but it definitely seems like outside of Utah and Washington and Arizona, definitely less, at least for me. So if you're out
right.
there and you're listening, jump on the Discord and let us know about your groups. Maybe we can find some more places and more people can play. I think that'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
Well, I mean, so it looks like they're doing some stuff up in Wisconsin, Colorado. I think I saw a game up in Washington State, and so like there is stuff happening. It's just a little more haphazard and a little more spread out. Well, let's be real, Sarah Kroll. Part of the problem is the West Coast is really spread out. Like you could drive for 10 hours and still be in Nevada. Like you're
It's
like
true, but like
ooh.
California's huge, and like I feel like it's definitely something where even in general, I think there's a statement to be said about SoCal disappearing this year. I mean that was literally in a heart of a California area, and you know we a tournament disappeared. And it wasn't crazy. I mean, you would think that something in California would be able to get the passing of a large event from somewhere like you know Nova or something because there's just so many people live there. So it's just a very eh, interesting dichotomy. And since I brought up real quick, LVO tickets May 15th, 10 p.m. PST. Go get them if you want to go. I'll be here. I will be there. It's my local. Come say hi.
Thank you. I was going to say that, but you beat me to it. So yeah. And so I will say the one glaring exception is California. It does seem odd to me that California specifically doesn't have a bigger scene. You are right about that. I was thinking about like the rest of the West Coast, and yes, we got communities spread around all of the West Coast. But California, you're right. California is a glaring omission where it seems like the game hasn't kicked off for whatever reason, which is weird.
What's weird is like if you add all of them together, they still don't add to California size. Like that's the crazy part. Is there's just so many people live there, and I know there's other games that are played. I mean, I'm sure the 40K community is pretty large out there and stuff like that. I just don't know. But even then, I don't hear about the events being anywhere near as big, even for like 40K compared to again. There's just so many more events held. It seems like on the East Coast. It's just very interesting. So that's not the topic of today, but I did think it was very interesting that Arizona seems to have this beautiful ecosystem, and hopefully it can grow to spread across other people, and whatever magic they found will work I'd love to get more some stuff going on here in Vegas where I could actually attend. That'd be awesome.
It's because you have to stay indoors in Arizona because we live on, as my friends call it, the surface of the sun. And
Yep.
they're like, you can't go outside. You're doing stuff inside. You live in California. I don't know. Do you go to the beach? There's
And
like,
play
Yes.
oh, it's
Shatterpoint on
so
the beach,
nice
right?
outside.
That's how it works,
Well,
right?
well, you certainly can with those new acrylic cards.
People,
Yeah, I want a beach edition of Shatterpoint AMG. Make everything so that I can play it in my pool outside because it's too hot to otherwise be outside in Arizona. So I need beach edition Shatterpoint. Let's go.
so a floating 3x3 table, and then some floaties you could sit in. You need some floating dice trays. And now we need someone who's really good with Photoshop to make this happen and post all those things. I want Aubrey sipping a mocktail, holding his cannon pieces. He's about to just, destroy someone.
Yes, yes, yes. And okay. So we could keep going. I do have to tell this just the fact that I feel you guys because I feel like in the past like week and a half I've played more Shatterpoint than I did in the previous like 3 months because because I actually had the time off on a day when there was a Saturday tournament. So I went to a Saturday tournament, but then that was the same weekend as Mr. E's monthly Sunday tournament, and I'm always able to go to those because they're on Sunday. And so I played 3 rounds in that first tournament. Oh, because it was the charity event, and then 2 rounds at Mr. E's, and then I got my league game in shortly after, like on either side of that. So I played like more Shatterpoint in that 1 week period than all the way past going back to through Adepticon, and I'm like, oh, okay, this is what this is like. I'm getting kind of tired. I forgot about the mental stamina that this requires playing this many games in a row because it had been a minute. So yeah, I feel you. I feel you both.
And just to pick
Oh,
up, yeah, are we ready to transition, or do you just have more to talk about for your recent journey?
no, 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 no. I was gonna say, but some of those stories we could tell during the main topic because, hilariously, Sarah Cruel. I don't know if you realize this, but everyone in our West Valley League is playing Mandalorians practically. All of them. Mando on Mando violence. Mandalorians all the way down. We're having a Mandalorian civil war. And so I thought it would be fun to do a bit of a deep dive since I've got, some fresh perspectives here on what do we think is either the best configuration of Mandalorians, or if we don't think we can get there, what are just some options for list building in Mandalorians? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So, to quote myself in Storytime, are you ready? Are you excited?
You invited an Empire player to talk about Mandalorians? What the heck's wrong with you? We don't have those models yet.
Okay, okay, you say that, but my league opponent, Devin, I think it was Devin, or something like that. Anyway, he literally did not take. I'm sorry, I'm terrible.
I'm sorry, I was trying to contain
It's
the
the
laugh. Devin or
it's the
something like that.
it's the ADHD baby bouncing around in my skull. Object permanence is hard. He literally only took Mando and Lando from me because, and I quote you, sir, if the list isn't gonna run a Mando in it, I'm not interested. Like he
All
didn't want
right.
what is it, Veers and Kit Fisto or the other foils. He's like, no, Empire, Galactic Republic, this is the way all the way down.
I can't say anything. I mean, I'm that way on the Empire, though I do have non-Empire box sitting on my table. But still,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just picked
So
up the
I
newest
figure
stuff.
the first thing we'd start is talk about primaries, right? Because your primaries are going to, at least to some extent, dictate how the rest of the list is going to flow, and so I figure we start there. The elephant in the room. Do you guys think there is a world where you do not build around the armorer and her identity? Is there any Mando list that doesn't want that? Do you
I,
think?
I think it depends on how you define Mando list. If you're looking for a list that's primarily consistent of Mandos, my current answer is probably not. I do think there are primaries, and I won't obviously steal the show that can do it. I mean, obviously Mandos existed before The armor existed, but they kind of fell out of favor because one of their biggest falter mechanics is when they get wounded, they just get so force expensive. So I think if you are going to build a list outside of that, you do need to be very force sensitive, or you're building a list where there's a Mando in it, but you could argue it may or may not be a Mando list. Obviously, there's a great example. There's a YouTube VOD out there. I brought Mando Thrawn to Adepticon. That's a list where there is a single Mando in it. So is it a Mando list? Fine line. And I think if you are going that direction, one thing that I would say is very important is, making sure you're building the right toolkit around bringing Mando. Um,
Can I pose a question? I would say, what would each of us say is the best Mando unit in the game right now? Choose one.
Oh, I mean, objectively best. I still think it's Mandalorian because he has the Clan of Two kit. He's good on defense. He's reasonable on offense. And then if you snipe somebody with that expertise, it becomes brutal. You can affect multiple points by attacking and then Clan of Twoing.
I would
I don't know,
disagree
but I
with
like
you.
options. I like options.
I'm going to give you a caveat of why I disagree with you. Mando is
Ooh, okay.
great whether or not he has the Mandalorian tag with him. The answer is Mando can be brought almost anywhere, and his tag has nothing to do with why he's good.
He still counts though,
He
but I mean
does.
you're right. But he
So
still counts as Aubrey's. This
I
is my
agree.
best Mandalorian. That's
I'm not going to disagree. I would argue the Mandalorian is one of the best models in the game, period.
uh,
Um, to me, I was going to say, if you're going to pick Mandalorian, I think it's very challenging. I would have two to hard. I'd struggle to pick from. It'd either be armor or I think the Covens. Because they are just so
mhm.
good. Like, yeah, if they get hurt and they don't have the armor, they would probably wreck. But their damage profile, because of their expertise, is just insane. Like, people are trying to tell me that they're not a aggro list, and I'm like, those unit alone almost make the list aggro because they just murder things. Like, that is literally why they exist. So that would be probably my answer. I think they're probably the best Mandalorian unit in the game as long as they're not wounded.
That's my answer too. Is I think that the coverts are the best Mandalorian unit in the game, hands down. They have fantastic expertise. They have protection situationally on their own. They just do so much. They're amazing. However, this is why you need armor because they're also the most expensive Mandalorians. They have jump. They have armaments. I forget the first part of
Yeah,
that ability's name.
Mandalorian
Yeah.
armaments.
Mandalorian. Well, that wasn't hard. I guess I should have known that one. Um, and then they also have the Mandalorians are stronger together. They need two out of three of those abilities because if they are not using Mandalorian armaments, they're not getting the benefit, all right, of that extra die from impact or sharpshooter. So if they get wounded, and they're going to get wounded because every seven, they have 7 hit points, right? Or do they have? No, they have 8.
Yeah,
Anyhow,
Pretty sure it's 8.
they have they have 7. They have 7.
they have
You're
7.
right.
Okay, it feels like 8 because they have protection sometimes.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah.
But even so,
Sometimes they have 8.
every support is going to get wounded, and they balloon their costs far more than the other Mandos. So if you're running the best, if you're taking, well, if I'm playing Mandos, I need to take the best Mando, and if Chris thinks the best Mando is the coverts because he has a huge bias towards supports, I need armor because you're going to kill them, and then I won't be able to use them again if I'm not running armor.
I mean, I would say that there is potential room for expanding on it if it wasn't for their errors limited. I do think if you could play a very good
Yeah.
positioning list, you could take them and just use them as a backline murder unit. But that is a game where you're hoping that someone doesn't just roll good or get lucky either. But there may be a realm where we eventually look and see where can they fit otherwise, because their kit by themselves is no different than a better version of like a Super Commander or Clan Kreese, where if you put them in a place, that first turn until they get wounded, they are still scary. Like if you
Yeah.
can keep them in the back until you go up and just murder two people, like that would be amazing. But yeah, I think they're probably the best Mando unit if we're using Mando specific tag.
And the crazy part is you just mentioned the error restriction. And I still think, even with error restrictions, maybe that's just because there are also other good pairings in that era for them right now. But even with that error restriction, I still think they're the best.
Mhm.
Which is crazy because I think that the Elite Squad Troopers are one of the best Empire supports in the game. but they're not usable because of their error restrictions. Now that might have be getting easier as time goes on, but disregarding that, I still think the coverts are just fantastic despite the restriction.
I mean, I think you guys may have convinced me in terms of versatility. Yeah, I still think it's Mando. But if we're making this a deep dive on Mandos, then yeah, every time I I look at my Shatterpoint card, I think about sending those coverts up because they're just so consistent at what they do. I mean, a lot of times you end up going with a primary just because you need the additional options, but it's entirely reasonable to just Shatterpoint your coverts and because they're going to do what you need them to do just about every time. And I almost wonder though, should our answer be armorer? Because I still think they need armorer to keep their costs down. Like they work so well together.
So I guess what I would say on that is I think Armor is great for two reasons. One, she makes the Mando tag unsusceptible to its biggest weakness. So in that regard, you could argue it's great. As we see more Mandos, we'll see if that's the case. I wonder if we'll get Mandos to the point where armor is not as necessary. Um, I think the other big thing that makes armor so good is her versatility is actually pretty insane. So I talk about in a lot of the discords about a thing called choice, player choice. I think the game as it grows will be the better players will get to the point where they're really good because they're going to be able to give themselves the most choices. And armor actually gives that. It doesn't look like it when you look at it on paper because you're like, hey, it's armor. All she does is go and smack something. But when you can jump, double move, and smack something, you can get almost anywhere, especially because you get that jump first, so you can get up on platforms, you can avoid terrain. You don't need ladders, like as you know, not just to relate to my experience. I'm a huge Thrawn player, but the problem is if I don't have ladders, his mobility can be much worse. For her, she's just like, I'll jump up and then I'll fly across the top floor, and land wherever I want. But because of that, you can get to almost anywhere on the map. So I think she's very good. And I think that's the hardest part about what we're talking about is in general, Mandos right now, their kits fairly limited in Mando tagged units, and most of them are all pretty good. I mean, the answer is I think in general. So I think to kind of bridge way into where we're going with this is so what can we look to build and what are our options? Because obviously we have the all Mandos. That's something that's been talked about, that's been discussed, it's pretty world. But is that the right list? Is that the best list? What does that list even do? So I think I think that's really kind of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So, but to answer the question, it sounds like right now today, if you're trying to focus on Mandos, we're probably bringing armor.
Probably. I think
Right. I
99% of
know
the
you
time.
don't have to, but I mean, I think you're giving up a lot of force efficiency because I'll tell you, Mando's if you only have five force, even with the identity keeping costs down, you can burn through your force so much. So then when you take that away, uh, it gets tougher.
I think there's a world where you can build lists. I think it's really what you're going to take it into. The answer is you need to be running into low aggro lists that don't want to wound things. Maybe you bring it with a revenge trigger to try and reduce that. Because again, Mandos aren't expensive at first. They're expensive once they die. They get very expensive because now you're looking instead of spending one force, you're looking at spending three force a turn. That's the cost difference. So I think that's really the perspective you need to take that understanding is it's really about once they get killed. If you could go through a whole game and they never get wounded, you wouldn't care.
Right. That's that's definitely true too. So if you're going into like an Iden list or even other Mandos, as I learned, ooh, oh my word, that turns into a bloodbath because like my league game was Mando on Mando violence, and I mean he was running a mall list with bow and super commandos, so he had a non Mando on one side, and I was running the Dooku armorer list. From Adepticon, and but it was still it was bloody. It was I will be honest, I thought of Mandos as more of like a mobility, like keep moving around the board, but no, they are very, the more I've played with them, I'm with you guys. They are aggro. They want to go in, they want to hit hard and then try to keep the momentum going before your opponent gets their plan in place. right?
But I mean, for balance pass reasons, I think it's going to be very interesting because I think they're going to be one of the most aggro lists out there if we see the changes that they're rumored to be covering. That they're making changes to things like dark troopers, things like we don't know what else, but they've been hinting at Iden might be touched. If that happens, I mean, I think they're going to be more aggro than people think. I know some people I talk to, like Dizzard from Rogue Sport, he says they're kind of aggro. I'm like, I don't know. If you look at Armor, what's her job? I run up and kill someone. I look at Covens. What do? I run up and kill someone. Uh, Maybe not Pass. He's more of a control piece. Maybe not Mandalorian. He's more of a control piece. And I think it really depends on the flavor you put next to him. But I mean, the answer is even Super Commandos, Gar Saxon, they're all kind of more murdery pieces. So in general, yes, they're high mobility, but their game plan seems to be let me murder the things that you want dead and make your force more expensive, and then I don't have that problem, so I just win because of force economy and being able to jump everywhere.
Yeah. Any other thoughts, Chris?
I 100% think Mandos are aggro, but I'm not sure. We'll see how things shake out in the next few months. I don't know if the Mando's aggro is. I don't think it's going to elevate. Is basically what I'm trying to say. I don't think that just if we think that going forward soon that maybe Iden gets knocked down a peg, the first thought is if there are no more releases, then Mando's fill the slot, right? But I don't think that's true because we're also seeing releases of things like Cassian and there are now more revenge trigger things in the game than there ever have been before. I mean, you can say that every release that there's a new revenge trigger, right? But like if I look at yesterday's event, out of 19 players, just I see 6 players brought Cassian. He's new, makes sense. 3 players brought Princess Leia. 2 players brought Dooku, an old revenge trigger character. 3 players brought the Mandalorian. Um, 2 players brought Han Solo. 1 brought Mother Talzin and 1 brought Kanan,
Ooh.
1 brought the Republic, Ahsoka. So that's a lot of revenge trigger things. Now that's also it's just a spread of revenge trigger things from every era in Shatterpoint, and but really I think Cassian is going to deter a lot of aggro from not playing more of a control style. We'll see.
My statement wasn't necessarily that aggro is going to be top dog. My statement is I think they will be potentially the top dog of aggro because the
Oh.
people being brought down will then leave Mandos are still going to be that really strong aggro player. That was all my comment. I'm not saying that that's going to
Okay.
be the meta. My meta is more I wouldn't be surprised if Mandos are now just end up being potentially some of the best aggro out in the market. That's all.
I think if you need to kill a control list, they're going to be great.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Which
So
reminds me of our game, Aubrey, that we played. What was
uh,
it? 2 weeks
w-
ago?
yeah, that was no, that was only a week. You must be tired. That was only a week ago.
Okay. Well,
You
I
played
had,
too many games, Chris. You don't know. You know. Do you know what day it is? You
I would
got
have said
here.
I would have said the fifth, and I would have been wrong. So,
May the fourth be with
all right, right, right.
you.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
day's tomorrow. Revenge of the Fifth is tomorrow. Okay.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Yes. There you go. There you go. No. No. That shows it in the game that we played at Mr. E's. I mean, I came out of the gates. There was a lot of wounds happening. I think there was one point where like most of your team was down. I mean, you
Hmm.
did a good job of like as everything came up with board positioning and your control, like you were able to fight back against it. But yeah, I was surprised. Honestly, that game is what kind of solidified the thought that Mandos are aggro because I don't think I've ever had that much violence committed against a control list like that and
Yeah.
like you obviously played well and pulled it back but man I was nervous. I was like, whoa, this is a this is I did a lot of damage over there. Like, whoa, okay.
That game started off, so it was Sabotage Showdown. I was playing Moff Gideon and Grand Inquisitor because I've been running that list like crazy in the last month.
You're welcome.
Um,
I'm taking credit.
thank you, Josh. I remember when I said I don't know about this list, man, and you're like, do it, do it. Um, anyway, so I was playing that, and I started off with me just like going with DTE first, fantastic, and just cementing that I was going to have both sides, and Aubrey couldn't do anything about it. And I still did. I think I lost struggle. Yeah, I lost struggle one, even though I held both sides of the middle for a couple of turns, and I just couldn't close it out because I don't know why I couldn't really close it out. Just Mando's did Mando things and said, "Nah, I'm gonna hang in there," and I just couldn't hold on. But your list had Ahsoka in it alongside armor, and Ahsoka is definitely going to bring some heat to a Mando's list because right, if you run Mandalorian, the dizzard on my shoulder over here is saying Mandalorian isn't doing a lot other than his revenge trigger, which can be played around. Right, because he's probably gonna throw somebody off an objective with his clan of two. You could throw an attack with it, but you almost never do. Like this only happens when you're desperate, I want to say. Like if you're behind or if you're really far ahead. That's the only time you're going to only use the attack from clan of two if you are just desperate or if you're just winning really hard, in which case it doesn't matter. But his attacks don't hit hard, usually, unless you're playing
So weird
local
too.
gear.
So
Yeah,
weird.
unless you throw in some IG-88 dice. I've had Moff getting one shot by that recently, but anyway, that's a totally different.
Whoa.
um, so yeah, but generally Mando doesn't. But Ahsoka can. Ahsoka can bonk somebody if the stars align, and they align a lot more for her than they do for Mando killing pieces.
Yeah, that was where I was going to bring. So talking about outside of Armor Mando, oops all Mandos, what other primaries do we think work? So now talking about Ahsoka, and what I like about Ahsoka, because I've played a few games with her now, is one, her her turn feels a lot like the armorer's turn. I'm going to go focus, and she doesn't hit as hard as the armorer because she doesn't have the expose, but you pretty much can guarantee that you're at least getting somebody off a point if you're not outright murdering them because she has all those early shoves. And then the just the fort the it's amazing what having six force with Mandos do because uh, just the one more force means you pretty much can do everything you need to do. It's silly. Even if Ahsoka was a little bit below the curve, and I know the jury's still out on where Fulcrum is supposed to be because she doesn't quite hit as hard as you would expect, but she almost does. But even without the rest of her kit, just having the one more force, I could do everything. I get everything. Like as long as you don't let Ahsoka eat up all your force, because she of course can just burn through four force on her turn, and sometimes you absolutely have to do that just to get something done, but you hope not to. Um, but it's interesting just having one more.
I think it's a very interesting list. I actually think it's a bit of a trap personally, and I'm going to give my explanation for this.
It's a trap.
I think the I think there's something there, but I'm not sure if the pieces around it exist. And again, I haven't gotten tons of games into it, but I've talked to a lot of people. I've watched quite a few games of the game that of this style of game. I've played into a couple times, amazingly. Got a chance to play into it at Adepticon in one of the first contact mission twice. Um, a lot of times people are bringing that with Sabine because they want to give Fulcrum the movement. And I will tell you, it all can be great or terrible based on order deck. As well as if you happen to shut down Sabine in any way, that can also be a problem. That's been at least my tactic for dealing with it is you go and you either kill Sabine or you throw a strain on Sabine. Out of nowhere, no one wants to now take Sabine on her turn because you're not doing anything with Sabine. And it makes it where then Ahsoka, if she's not pulled at the right time, you're going to end up in this problem where you have to spend a bunch of force to move her up the board. And then all that force you're bringing really didn't bring anything. Because if you have to use double jump to get up the board to be able to do something, you've bought two force really. And that's the challenge. So I think she's going to, if we can ever get a couple pieces around that can do more for her, or maybe give more options to move her, I think Armor Fulcrum will be really good. But I mean, I even did a quick check while you brought her up. She's currently at a 33% win rate on long shakes with that combo, and I think that's because you can get either really good play or you can draw into it and just I can't do anything. I know my game that I played in Rudy was the gentleman I played and I was talking about. I played Krennic into, and he that's what he ran was Fulcrum Ahsoka. And Fulcrum killed one thing the entire three struggles because she just had to kite her. I just kited her around the board. She was chasing Iden for half the match, and my mobility was just like, I'm gonna go over here, and I killed like two or three things before Ahsoka got to me. So I think the answer is that's the challenge is how do you make the best use of that list, and that's where I think a lot of things we're gonna find is how do we fit something else that's not a Mando into it. Um, and I think I mean I can give my choice. I actually think Maul is fantastic. I think
Oh,
Maul
so
is a
you also have a desert on your
I
shoulder.
do. I have the desert on my shoulder. Let's be honest. Then again, I mentioned earlier, I'm all about choice. Maul is literally here's a billion choices to it. And I know a lot of people talk about, hey, he can get shut down with a strain or a pin, and I think that's a little bit over suggested. My answer is as long as the strain doesn't kill him, cool. I just get more damage on my attack or throw more dice. Obviously, it's going to kill him. That would be a problem. But you get an extra move halfway through the game. As long as it's not your first time, you're going to be able to shell that off, still get a full advance and probably a reposition if you want it, along with your force pulling things off. So I do think that the answer is I think Maul is my preferred cup of tea. I got a chance to use that at LVO. I did it with the teams tournament, and we did really well with it. I think it can be very challenging to play because you do have to learn how to play Maul, and Maul is not simple. Like I think a lot of people say, oh, he's a lot of people say he's bad, but trying to find the lines of how do I pull this person off, make this, when do I go with him? That's probably the hardest part. Is do I reserve him? What point do I have that point where I can make that multiple play without Maul being a liability afterwards? And I don't have an answer other than get reps in. I'm not sure how you learn that. I feel like it's something you just feel. So that's my pick. I think Maul's a great pick with the Mandalorians.
But I think that Ahsoka also, a Fulcrum Ahsoka, also requires a lot of reps because this character is a character that is going to ask you to accurately assess risk. How am I going to get down my tree? Am I not going to get down my tree? What are the chances that I do this? Am I one-shotting something? Am I just trying to shove something? All these things are huge risk assessments, and if you are wrong, or if the dice fail you, and then it becomes riskier than you thought it was going to be, now you're in the hole and you're losing the game because she can absolutely lose you the game, or she can win you the game. But if you're the only way to get better at assessing risk with characters is to play them. Same as Maul. You got to put reps into them so you can figure them out. I mean, so yesterday, Izzy came up to me after the tournament and said, in different words, because I'm gonna adjust the words for our Padawan listeners. Okay. Um, Izzy came up to me and he said, Ahsoka Fulcrum with armor is really bad. Okay, and and I get where that's coming from because you can have terrible games with Ahsoka, and you can feel like she just loses you the game, and she's a really complicated model, and I have mixed feelings still about her. Maul's the same though. But yeah, I mean, uh, if you're pairing something with armor, I think my so in terms of Mando lists, I'm kind of disappointed in that like I need variety, and I hate feeling like something is solved. And so I love separatists, but I'm kind of bored with separatists because I feel like they're solved. And and I feel like the community came to some really great lists with Mandos very quickly. It was, hey, we love Maul with armor, and we love like Luminara is also pretty good with armor, and Mando is good with armor, and that's it. And they stopped. And I don't feel like I've heard anybody else talk about anything other than basically Mando armor, Maul armor. Even though there are still other good options, and that kind of like I
Well, I
don't think
think
we're done
Lumi armor is
exploring.
the one that you mentioned that is a huge point. I think Lumi armor is way under talked about.
Like, would you run it with Crosshair, or are you running Gar Saxon? those are the questions you have to ask because Crosshair is fantastic still, especially in a Lumi armor list. You're gonna get some dashes for your team.
Yeah, no, I think that would be one of the ones that are unsung because the answer is that's more mobility on top of it. Plus, you're reducing the power of being murdered on armor even more. The answer is yeah, you don't have the cost of being hurt because you lose force, but on top of that, then you get the heals, which means
Yeah.
people are going to live longer. On top of that, you with the new first contact list can just bring people back from the dead. And I will tell you, that is the list for armor. If you want to run it, run first contact, man. I think that list is the best list because the answer is it just punishes people because things come back and you just can't wipe them off the board if you're running an aggro list. You have to play control into it.
And I like Lumi. I think Lumi's great with armor, and first contact is a you could do a whole. I mean, you could
That's
probably
not
do
the
a whole
topic of
couple of
today.
episodes on first contact with
Yeah.
how that is for certain
We'll save that
lists.
for later.
Yeah, you're probably right, Josh. They probably do like that a lot. I so all right. But my point is, I think that we should still do experimentation with armor, and I think there's more out there. And I don't think anyone has really been pushing the boundaries of Mandos after the armor box came out. Has there been like there's been some tech you can now run Cad Bane right with armor. You didn't do it before because it was too force restricted. Now you can put Shakti there. You could do Cad Bane Shakti red Mandos, right? With armor you have now the normal force. Guess what? Your covert Mandos, they're going to get you force back probably when they kill something. Now we got force refresh built in.
So here's my question for you on that.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, is it still worth bringing armor? What is the fulcrum point, if you will, of force refresh, force reduction of the
Mm-hmm.
armor? How many models do you need? Where at that point the answer is the best armor list is we don't bring armor. Because armor, yes, you're laughing, but I'm being very serious. Like the answer is there is a point where we talk about with Spectre. I think it's a good analogy. There's a point where if you have too few Spectres, the answer is it's no longer a Spectre list, it's a Rebel list. At that point, is it better to bring Kanan or is it better to bring PLC? Is it better to bring Cassian? Whoever that may be. And I do think there has to be a point where if you're only running two Mando models, my answer is it's probably the option is deal with the problems of the Force. There's probably something better to bring that could bring more to whatever your game plan is. What that is, I don't know. What do you think, Aubrey?
I think that you would still want to you now have freed yourself up from the option because you're bringing Shakti. So now you can either bring Paz or Bo with the other list. So you're freed up to have options there in your secondary slot. And then Armor still loves to go run across the table and go bonk. And that still feeds into the rest of the game plan. So I mean if we're going by the Spectre analogy, generally speaking, as long as you have, like, I would say four Spectres is the ideal amount. Like, once you drop down to three, you can do it, but it's not exactly the same. So as long as you're running like an armor or Mando list on the other side, and then we were talking about super commandos on the other side. Although you could, I don't know. Do you want super commandos or do you want clan? I always feel weird leaving home clan Kreese. Like they're just very good at their shovey shoves, and I mean I think that's still Mandos. I think you still want armor just because you have what I think is the critical amount. You have four Mandos,
I think
right?
the reason that I said red Mandos with CAD is because of the error restrictions on CAD, and so that and Shakti, and that leads you into more of a premier setup because then you can crease your way somewhere else
Yeah, it
around
depends
armor.
on if you're going to go
Uh
more
huh.
Mandos elsewhere or not. But,
Yeah.
but I agree. But my answer is if you're only having three, I will tell you there's a reason I don't think we see much of one squad is synergized as this and so one squad is synergized as this. I've run some things. So pre-adeptic LVO actually, I was trying to run a armor one side or an empire one side and then a Maul on the other side. And this isn't obviously Mando related, but I actually put Mandos with Maul. And what ended up happening is I didn't have enough Mandos for them to always get their stronger together. So we end up in the synergy problem. So there is, I do think, a point, at least currently in the game, I don't know if this will always be the case, where it's very hard to run a squad and a squad and just say, these are both good squads that have no synergy together. So I do wonder if you're only running three Mandos, is that a point where, okay, is armor better, or is it better to put Mando in there and now I'm running a control list, or is it better to put, again, hypothetical, of anyone you want in that portion? Um, I think the Mando list will also get better if we ever get some tag agnostic connections. Like armor will be insane if we ever get like the Imperial Mandos, or if we ever get something that deals along with the, maybe they do Rebel Commandos, down the line. I think that would be. Then you have an option of how do we make these two synergy together. But right now, Mando's kind of a synergistic. Either you're doing stuff for me, or I'm not doing anything with you. I mean, outside of Mandalorian, where he has bounty hunter synergies and stuff like that. So I do think that you need four. I'm with you. I think four is the number. If you go below that, I do think at that point your list, the other side has to be very generic. Then I guess it had to be something like Fulcrum, maybe Rebel Commando, something very generic where it's just good and it doesn't rely on the Mando tag at all.
Yeah, but then that's not a Mando list, and we're focused on Mandos. So I think everybody has heard enough about like the list from Adepticon that we don't need to dig into it too much. But because I'm also we've already been going for a while here, and I want to get to the secondaries and supports. But what I will say is I understand the tech there. I played only one game with it, and I almost never ran out of force. And that is despite my my blunder to not tell the whole story. But I might have forgotten that Magna Guards are a melee only unit, and then tried to attack a unit at range because I've been playing with Clan Crease for a really long time. Like that's yeah. I measured to make sure they were on a point, and they were on a point, and I was like, okay, cool, I can just focus attack. So I went and did my other attack, did the whole results, and then I came back to the point that actually mattered, and I went, okay, and now I'm gonna attack them, and then I went, I measured to the objective. I didn't measure to his super commandos, and I checked it because they were just barely to the left of the objective, right? Like they were close to they were almost on top of the objective, but notably they were not in range two of my Magna Guards. And the funny part is this was this guy's like third game of Shatterpoint, but he's played Legion and MCP, and he was like, "Wait, the Magna Guards don't have their little gun?" And I'm like, "What gun?" And he's like, "Well, in Legion they have a little like holdout blaster they pull out and shoot you." And I'm like, I want the Magna Guards to have a gun. And he's like, I just figured you were gonna shoot me. I didn't know there was anything wrong with what you were doing because he's only plays Mandos. He loves Mandos all the way down, and he just thought what I was doing was reasonable, and I had to be like, no, they're melee only.
You almost Aubrey'd him. You almost went cheating panda like you always do. You should just
Right?
roll with it. He wouldn't even known until the podcast.
Yep, I almost cheated again, except on myself. So there's my little bit of shame. Like the worst part is I just didn't. I just needed to move them like barely like a few millimeters and not focus. And all I needed to do was shove. Now, Chris, remind me, what are Magna Guards really good at doing?
They're pretty good at shoving. They're pretty
All
good
I
at
had to do,
that.
all I
That's
had to
like all
do
they
was
do.
just roll one fewer dice and go, okay, they're in range. So, but to focus on the rest of that, the Dooku list, you never run out of force. It's insane because it it just keeps on coming. Like Chris, you know Dooku better than I do because I hadn't played with him in almost a year, so that's part of the thing. I was like, how does Force Lightning work? Which side is this? I remembered all my Magna Guard triggers at least. Like I moved them up with their protection protocols and everything. I just forgot they didn't have a gun.
Small detail.
Small details. But the Force Refresh was awesome. Oh yeah, that list sung. So maybe more people need to bring not Mandos to the Mando party.
I guess my question being is, who exists currently in a synergistic nutshell where all they need to bring is a support or a secondary that by itself is good enough? Because that's really is the Count Dooku is good because of what he brings, and that the Magna Guards are good, and he doesn't need anything else to be good. Anything else is just icing on the top. So is there any other models that fulfill that role, that fill that gap of, you know, of providing something like that? I don't have an
Hmm.
answer. So if you're looking for me to come back and be like, this is what I would do, I have no idea. Uh,
No, nope, that one. So because of time, and I know we got. I think we will just put that out to our dear listeners. That's something to think about. Come and tell us in the Discord what what other primary kits do you think you could bring? Because I think that's what we're challenging people is. Yes, you could just run Oops All Mandos. Yes, you could just run Armor Maul. And we're not saying they're bad. Like no one here is saying these are bad choices, but I think we are challenging you to think about what else you can bring besides those two. Because even Maul didn't have a great showing at Adepticon, right? Like even though we all seem to agree that Maul is great, Maul did have some struggles. So what other options are out there?
I I will give a potential, and the only reason I don't think it's good is because of force problems. But theoretically, I actually think Krennic could potentially fill this role. Krennic only needs a stormtrooper, and then everything after that on his target has nothing to do with tags. Now, again, I don't know if that works with Mandos because then you're running 4 force, and we all know that that is very hard. But in the future, if there's ever a list that says, hey, I just need something that's going to destroy people's momentum and have a guy that runs around and throws stuff, you know, throws some shore troopers and Krennic, and then he's a 9, so you could even put a 5 in there if you could find a good 5. So I don't know. Again, I don't think it works in our current scenario, but I do think he's another piece where I would say I would not be surprised if at some point he just fits somewhere with something that's completely unsynergistic.
Interesting. Yeah.
Remind me
Okay.
again why we need armor if we have Dooku and a bunch of force. Because in my mind, the reason I take armor is because I'm taking coverts, and coverts demand that I have armor because they're going to be too expensive.
Well, it's going to be that it's the enhanced cost. I mean, it depends. If you can do something to protect them, 3 force when you're still, even if you're bringing 6 force, 3 force is half your force after they get wounded. That's the
Yeah, but if you
problem.
don't take armor, then you have 7 force.
Okay, that's still on one turn. You still think it's okay to use 3 force?
If I have Dooku and Magna Guards, yeah, probably. I'm
Yeah.
not spending force anywhere else. And if
Then
it's Mando instead of armor, I mean, I'm not saying that this is the best list. Obviously, this has been around for a while and it hasn't shown up on top. So, like, just
doesn't mean
I
people are
just
trying it either.
yeah, yeah,
Eh,
yeah.
more data, more data. But okay, let's go on to secondaries.
Okay.
So I'm gonna start with the big one in the room. How do we feel about Paz? Yay or nay?
I
Or
can
maybe.
give. I think the answer is I think Paz is fine. The problem with Paz is again his own mobility. He suffers in many ways Ahsoka does in the sense that order deck turn. When does he appear? Has the right things happen for him? Is that too much of a variance? I don't know. I mean, he does a great job of locking down points, and I think he does really like maps where he can really put his bubble really protectively. Um, and I've definitely had games where, man, Paz is the reason I've lost, and games where Paz is also the reason I've won. Um, so I'm not down on Paz. I don't know what tool to give him to make him consistent, in my opinion. At least if we're talking competitive play. On a I mean, I took him at the Del Vio event, and I think he was fine for our team's event, and he did pretty good. I enjoyed bringing him across the board, but there was definitely a few games where I'm like, oh, Paz is going to sit on the back point more. That was his job. And I don't know, do we want that? I guess my question is really more about secondaries. There seems to be a lot of times we like secondaries with support options of like I can move things, I can do things. And Pat kind of has that, but he doesn't have any for himself. He's not like like obviously DT is not a good example because DT is probably the best secondary in the game, but he offers mobility for other people and for himself, and he's throwing at it like it's money, mobility. So Paz doesn't do that for himself, and that's kind of the problem. Is Paz can have a dead turd even if he gives mobility to somebody else. What are your
You're
thoughts,
Fair.
right.
Chris?
It's consistency. He's a great piece. He's not a consistent piece. Um, and I'm like almost beginning to wonder if his best spot is outside of Mando's because he doesn't really need other Mandos. He's probably I don't know. I mean, like not a lot of them anyway. If I had him with Cassian, he fits there. I just need a bunch of force somewhere else, and then I can, revenge trigger Paz around and move him that way. Like, there's a problem is he gets stuck in the corner and then, you know, and he also can't spend your force. So I don't know. Consistency is a problem for him.
He's so deck reliant. He's so deck
Mm-hmm.
reliant.
Yeah.
Like in
I
our game, Aubrey, right? Turn one, I'm like, I'm gonna go with DT. I'm gonna like shove your Mandos off of an objective that you're starting with and do some conditions to them. I don't care if you move with somebody else to give them a jump. They got conditions, unless it's pass.
right. Right. That's been my issue with Paz. And I hate to say, "Oh, I just agree with you all." But I don't like I like bringing Paz because when he's good, it feels like he's very very good and swings you the game. But it's what is it? It's a low it's a high ceiling and a low floor or whatever, because then there's other times where I'm like, if I had drawn anything but Paz, I would have won the game, but I drew Paz here and now I'm losing. And so at this, at this particular moment, because of, how the rest of the order deck went. And so I still don't, I've tried lists with him. I've tried lists without him. Sometimes I feel like I miss him. Sometimes I feel like I don't. This is where Mando's. I feel like the secondaries are really tough because their Paz is really close to greatness.
If we get a second primary that can move him, I think he will be incredibly good because then you're exponentially increasing that chance that he can get moved.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the problem is, if we talk about all the primaries we mentioned so far, Ahsoka, Maul, I guess Lumi would be an okay one, but we'll exclude that one for a minute. And sorry, Ahsoka, Maul, Mando. None of those characters move anybody. They are all selfish characters in many
Mm-hmm.
ways. And because of that's kind of what we're the problem there is that again we almost need a secondary or a support that could possibly move. I don't know how you'd balance that, but maybe a 5 cost of some form could be very interesting that can move something like that. But we don't just have that move X. I mean, the problem is I think a good person that would be good with him would be Crosshair if you could find a way to bring him with him because he can move anything. But then you'd also be running 4 force and still have a problem. So it's
Can you
again,
clarify which you're talking about? CT
CT,
9904.
yeah, CT because he can move any model, you know, basically period would be something like that. He's a universal case. But again, force costs, errors, none of that works. But again, a unit like that where they could just here move this unit would be really helpful, I think.
Oh, okay. So it sounds like if we're sticking to Mandos, we're thinking the best secondaries are Gar and Bo, but there is another contender in the room. Sarah Kroll, you're the one with the most experience, I think. You wanna talk about our buddy Dengar for a minute?
Yeah, so I think it really depends on what you want to do. So one of the biggest problems with Mandalorian himself, so Mando, big boy, shiny silver, is if you draw him first, second, and even sometimes third, he can just be a dead draw. Because the answer is you need stuff to move up the board, and you need hopefully a revenge trigger maybe even sometimes to make it so he can get up the board. So he can then go on his turn, actually do something with his clan of two, still get a shot off, and it's not just move, take cover, and clan of two. Obviously with Mandos it makes it easier because you don't have to dodge around everything, which as a person who's played a lot of Mando Empire, I've had to get really good at. Every time I position model, if I have Mando moving, is this going to be a problem? But I think Dengar solves that problem. He makes the reserve on him for free. Dengar is also very cost effective force wise, so if you do have a list that needs force efficiency, he costs essentially nothing. Unless you pay to him for some reason, which could be very useful in the sense of now he's a Mando, which can be very cool. So if you need that trigger of hey, I need to get that stronger together, and the only person I have is Dengar, when you draw that card, turn him into a Mando, jump over there, and now you have stronger together. We do have some options in that regard. So that's I think Dengar is a very unsung piece. The answer is yes, he's very simple, and some of his turns aren't flashy, but dash, move, and smash somebody in the face is usually never bad, or just sit on a point.
But Dengar
Chris is
Dengar does
squirming, guys.
Dengar does good things. And you're right with Mando, but then I think I have to ask you, what's the objective of your list? If it's an aggro list, Mando is not an aggro piece.
You're not
If
bringing in
if
for Man. If
but
you're
then what's
bringing
your whole
Mando,
list?
he's a control list. Let's be completely honest. If you're bringing Mando, you're bringing a control version of Mandos. right? Displacement, controlling points. Dengar plays that place of I'm going to sit on a point and make sure no one can take it. Mando's going to shove people off the point, then run away to another point.
How good is Bo-Katan at controlling, or Paz for that matter? If the opposite side of your list is either Bo-Katan or Paz, because you probably have armor over there, I assume. Um, if Bo has a shove on, she needs to get 3 boxes down her tree before she's getting shoves. So if she's not already on the objective, she's gonna have a hard time controlling things off of it or getting control of those spots. So if she's late to the party, you're gonna struggle. Same for maybe not the same for the coverts because they have a fantastic tree.
They just kill the
and
thing.
and they can kill the thing and hey, that's a different form of control. I know that that's also aggro, but in this game it's also control because I've shut off your scoring potential.
Yeah.
I just call into question the objective of the list, and if you're polling your list in too many directions, is it good at it? Then it's just medium at everything, and guess who's medium at everything? CT9904. Now he's not played because he's too medium. Okay, I say that I had to pull that out just because I love that character, but he's too medium, and you can have a list that is too medium, and then it doesn't actually accomplish anything effectively.
So the only thing I'll say on the form of control is Bo is a control piece in the sense that she does give protection and steadfast. So she doesn't get things off points, but she makes other stuff you have stay on points. So she is a control
Sneaky.
piece in that regard. Again, I'm not saying that this is the best Mando list.
Okay.
I haven't played it. But my answer is I do know that Mando and Dengar together is very helpful for not having a dead activation. And I think people underestimate the power of a dead activation. If you draw Mando and you have to spend a force when you only have 5 force to reserve him, and then you draw something that's also not good, you've now wasted a force and are behind on force, and you still have a bad unit. So having
Yeah.
that extra force to say at least I can do something with that later is very valuable.
I know someone who would solve that problem by saying, well, if I just don't take Mando in my armorers list, if I'm not taking Din Djarin, I don't need Dengar.
What I would argue here is are we talking about giving people more options, or are we going to keep playing the same 3 armor lists
That's
that
fair.
exist? Otherwise, I
That's
don't know what
fair.
this whole podcast is about. What is the last 4 hour been?
I just wanted to dunk on Josh.
You know, all I gotta
Yeah, I'm
say
like,
is go watch my Mando
mm,
Dengar at Adepticon. It's one of the craziest games I've ever played, and
I
it was
believe it.
super fun. And Dengar's awesome,
Yes,
underrated.
yes.
So
Hey,
there, I've
hey,
dropped my minis because that's what I put
if
down on the table.
if nothing else, guys, you've got me excited about trying both a Lumi list and a Mando Dengar list, just to get more, info, get more data. So I'm excited. All right. So we left the easy conversation for last, guys.
Hmm.
Supports. Why are you taking coverts, and why are they good still? And who are you taking them
Do
with?
do we need to
Before
do we need to even
before we
conversate that like we just talked about earlier?
before
I
we
know.
go into that real quick though, so
Oh,
we're just
yes.
agreeing that Bo-Katan is probably the best Mandalorian tagged secondary in the game.
If
Is
you're
that
putting
right?
in
Do we
armor,
agree?
yes, I would say that's a very safe bet. She gives mobility, control,
You think
and
Bo isn't the best secondary for Mandos, even if armor isn't there?
well, I guess I would argue at that point as a Mandalorian list. This is going back to a conversation an hour ago. At
Sure,
that point,
sure.
now we're in a situation of, well, what else are you going to bring with armor? There's only so many things that fit in armor's restricted era. So that's where I argue 100% the case. If you're not bringing armor, I'd have to see what that list looks like. And I think then at that point, it still may be. It depends on how many Mandalorians you have. If you have less than
Yeah.
3 or less, my answer is maybe not. Maybe Gar and just going for the kill. Gar Saxon. I think Gar is better than a lot of people give credit. The problem is he only exists in one
Yes.
era.
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I would say in terms of options, because I really wish that Gar Saxon had more eras connected to him, because I know that that could happen. I think if he wasn't so restricted on his era, I think there might be more of an argument for him. So I think it's Bo just because she fits in more places, and she provides everything basically except for the consistent shoves. Like she does everything you want except for that. And okay, most of your other Mandos have very consistent shoves. So if you have one character that's a little weaker in that area, you've got plenty of places to shore up what I would think is probably her only weakness. Other than not as tanky as you think with all that protection steadfast bubble. She can still kind of go down. I I'm always surprised by that.
Outside of Mandalorian, I feel like that is just true of most models. Mandalorians seem to be squishier than you think. They got great defense die, but their healths are not that high, and therefore the best thing to do to a lot of times to them is kill them. That's also why before they had such a problem. Again, they don't like being killed, and then you killed them, and that's the I think the truth of the matter of that situation. So
Yeah. All right. So trying to wrap things up because I can hear a baby. I'm hearing a baby. So
definitely not
so
little Paige in the other room screaming. Definitely no.
yes. So I guess the only question is we've already talked a lot about how great the coverts are. We don't need to belabor that point. Clan Crease has very consistent early shoves. So my only real question is when do you think it is appropriate to take the super commandos over one of those two options? Because I still haven't figured that out myself.
When I have to.
Error restriction.
Yeah,
So
eras.
Maul, Lumi. I mean, even then you could still bring, technically Clan Crees. I do think Super Commandos, if you're doing something with melee centric, can be really good. If you have a lot of tools, like I actually think them with Lumi would be not too bad because you could really get in those tar pits, move them around, make people have
Hmm.
to move out of them and get hurt, and then obviously if they can come up and they can punch someone, they do good damage. Um, uh, but I think if you're running them like Lumi, Gar, Super Commandos, that's not unheard of. I actually think that's probably pretty good. Or Maul. Uh, it really depends on what you want from your list. If you need more kill, Super Commandos are better. If you need more shoves, Clan Crease is better.
So another reason Super Commandos are great with a Cad Bane Shakti Super Commando option. More force refresh. They'll die. But then we get force refresh when they don't when they do things.
All right, I'll have to add that to the key. You know what? Y'all are gonna have to send me notes after this. I'm like, okay, so I've got a Cad Bane list I have to try. I have a Lumi list I gotta try. I have a Mando Dengar list. So hey, everybody, look at that. That's three completely different ideas right there of that we could get some more data on and figure out which way is the way.
And I do want to bring up one other support. This is something that I've been hearing from other communities as people have been bringing, which is not Super Commanders, Republic Commandos instead of Clan Crees in a list that has armor. And I get the idea. You want something that has infiltrate. You get the idea of, hey, I got something that can kill things. Versus Clan Crees obviously only brings shove if you're bringing something like an Ahsoka. My biggest thing is, at least from my experiences, you've just put a target on your list is the problem. So my problem is I think until they die, they were actually really good. But the problem is what's happened is anyone who's playing them is just going to chase it and just kill them. Like that's usually when I see commandos, that's usually the first thing. Like, how can I kill them? They don't get all the revenge triggers because they're not Spectre. They're in an armor list. They're going to increase the force cost where you're never going to use them for their abilities again. Um, and that would be my one concern I'd present because I've been hearing rumblings that people are like, get rid of Clan Crees. Clan Crees are great. I don't know what people are talking about. They consistent shoves. They bring Mando synergies. They're really good. But with the Fulcrum running around, Fulcrum Sabine with Republic Commandos is only giving something that everyone's going to want because they're going to just target that one thing. So that'd be my one hesitant because I've been hearing
you
multiple people
mean
have brought it to me. Not
you mean the New Republic, right? The Rebel Commandos,
Rebel
not
Commandos,
the
sorry.
not the clone
No,
troopers.
no, my bad.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Rebel
Yeah, the
Commandos. All
Rebel
Rebel
right.
Commandos.
Commandos.
Sorry,
Now
Rebel.
everything you've said just makes sense. Okay.
Sorry,
I
mixed
was
up
like
those words. Rebel
Republic Command.
Commandos. You should have known that with
Uh,
Infiltrate, but yeah,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
yes.
Rebel
No, no.
Commandos.
I
Sorry,
heard that, and I'm like, okay, that's what he's talking about.
sorry guys. Yeah, I
No. Here you go.
switched up words,
It,
but yeah, the
yeah.
Rebel Commandos. I
Hmm.
understand they're good. I think any list I see them in, they're usually the first thing I want to kill, and that's just giving a
Yeah.
target in a Mando list. So
Yeah.
that's my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong because obviously I haven't tested as much, but I just look at it as great. Here's something I can make a dead activation, and it's going to be easy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it sounds like jury's still a little out. I actually think I am gonna try Super Commandos a little more because if we're going down the corollary of Mandos should be played like an aggro list, you can play them control, but that's a different configuration. Maybe I need to give Super Commandos another try just because there are times the clan creeps are so consistent. Shove, shove, great. You take a point, but then you like I've gone 4 steps down their tree, and I'm like, wait, I only do like 3 damage. What, like, huh? What's going on here? And it's because their third step, like, there's no damage on it, like none. It's just a condition, and you're like, oh, I guess these guys don't hit as hard as you expect.
Yeah, I guess my one thing I would say is like, and this is always my question. I sit there and go, if I could bring Super Commandos in another era, would I? And my answer is there's definitely sometimes I would. I think them being a jump, like I play a lot of ISB. I've converted Chris to now play a lot of ISB, which makes me so
Yes, you
proud.
have.
They're so good, and these are like ISBs that can jump. Like I would kill for that. Like that's amazing. I think their biggest problem again is their error, and I'm hoping this balance update will make a lot of world where we maybe see more places with them. Like I said, when you mentioned Cat with them, like seems good, and then you could throw 2 dice extra on top of them and yeah, or 2 damage and just kill something with super commandos after a double punch to the face. Seems good. Seems really good. Haven't tried it, but seems good. So
All right, guys. So we're coming up on that 90-minute mark. So I know we gotta release Sarah Kroll. Do we have any final thoughts on our "This Is the Way" episode here before we close things down?
My final thought is going to be a little twofold. So two final thoughts for me. Um, the first is I don't think the Mandalorians are solved, and there's more options than the two that we have landed on, and we can continue to evolve that list. And I think it's going to get more options still going forward. But like, we don't just have to play Mando armor and Maul armor and nothing else. Let's keep experimenting. And the second thought is you would be surprised at how well a model that you haven't picked up since the release of the game does if you haven't played it in a while with the things that you've learned between now and then. I've been learning this a lot with certain things that I've been playing, where I thought, oh my goodness, I played this so many games in the past, and I did not realize how good blah 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 was on this character. So that's a bit of a call to the Super Commandos, the Rebel, there's too many commandos in this game, man. Uh,
The Commando
the
Commandos.
the the Red Mando Commandos are, you might discover something that you really like about them even now.
Awesome. All right, Josh, you got anything?
what I would say is, I think there are things that we have put on the side that are really potentially have things that we just haven't figured out. To really align with what he's saying, just having this conversation, what I would challenge people is to really think about it. Like in my head, I just thought about how good would Veers be with armor, and people are gonna look at me like, "What are you talking about?" But if I put a snowtroopers and bow on that side, and then I'm just bombardment blasting people and putting strain or 3 damage or shoving them off points, maybe that's really good. Maybe that's super good. And then my snow troopers get to move forward and they can have some control off the bat. Maybe you use them to take both points on sabotage. I don't know, but I agree. I think my point is there are some things out there. I mean, uh, if we look at Longshanks, there are some units that I know are good that just haven't been figured out yet. Like Krennic is in the dumpster. Um, so I guess that would be my challenge to everyone to sit there and say, hey, is there? Let's look at what you know the mighty Scott, world champion, has done with Dooku and shown that you can take just 2 models. And can we do that something somewhere else? Now that we have a unit of Bo-Katan or Clan Kreese that can fit in any era, what does that look like? Because again, we talked about, I mean, Crosshair, again, the 4 Force might be a problem, but you could technically bring Mando Clan Bo-Katan Crosshair, and then you have double movement. And now you can move past. Is it good? No idea. That's for them to figure out. And then tell me about it, because unless it's got Empire, it probably won't be me. But that's just surrealist. I got to
What?
Someone's got to rep them, especially because we all know if the bounce pads, they're going to go into the dumpster.
Aww. So what I'm hearing is Josh just wants us all to play more Empire. That's what I'm
Yes,
hearing.
always. ISB Super Commando, someone figure it out, and I will play it because I just want tar pits everywhere. That'd be hilarious.
Good.
Awesome. Well, I don't think I have any thoughts that weren't already said. I think you guys put it very well. And so let's everybody, since everybody on the West Valley and Phoenix is playing Mandos, my challenge is try out some non-standard Mando lists, and if nothing else, it will make our league games more interesting because we won't just be playing Mando on Mando on Mando on more Mando. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, sounds like a good plan.
Awesome. All right. Well, guys, again, thank you for coming on. We got to give Todd a break this week, let him get caught up on things and actually attend an event. So thank you very much. Listeners, as always, please, the ways that you can help us out is by rating, reviewing the podcast on whatever platform that you are listening to us on. Please jump in the Discord, continue this conversation with us. Check out all of the other awesome content creators. There's a bunch of cool podcasts out there. Rogue Support, hello there, Zion's Finest, Clan of Two, Red Mandos. I could keep going. There's YouTube videos. The Fifth Trooper has all kinds of cool stuff that you can look up and read. There's awesome events going on. There's too many. We've been talking for too long, so I'm not going to highlight any events like Todd. But go find an event. There's lots of stuff going on out there. Join our Patreon if you would like to give back to the podcast in that way. Thank you to all of our supporters on Patreon. We appreciate you so much. I still can't believe that people actually support this crazy thing that Todd has me doing. Yes. So thank you, everyone, and as always, may the force be with you.
And play more Thrawn.